Alrighty guys, another little video for you here. Just a disclaimer, I'm not a water heater technician. This is just me fiddling around with it. The water heater, this is a Dometic water heater for a camper. This is a LP and an electric water heater. I could not get this water heater to come on. I could not get the LP or the electric to come on. So I did some research, followed what some of the research said. Still had no luck getting this thing to turn on, so I decided to just go start fiddling with everything. So I'm going to start from the top, and then at the end I'm going to tell you what my solution was. So the first thing I did was I checked inside the camper. Inside the camper I have this wired into an outlet. So first thing I did was made sure my outlet was working. So I just unplugged my outlet and then plugged in a cell phone charger. And once I plugged the cell phone charger in, I saw the outlet was getting power. So the next thing I did was I came out here and I removed this cover. So make sure you turn the breaker off before you remove this cover. So I removed this cover and then came right in here. So once I was in here, this is the wire that's going into where I have it plugged into an outlet. So I followed it out to here, pulled this off, turned the breaker on, checked voltage. I had good voltage. Had 120 right here. So the next part of me said, let's put a voltmeter right here on this one. And I had nothing. So my initial thought was that this relay went bad. This is a 30 amp relay. You can get it on Amazon. However, that was not the problem. When I get to the end, I'd recommend, if you're having the same issue, I'd recommend checking this first. But I wasn't getting any power to the heating element here. So the next thing I did was I came up to the circuit board. Probably a dumb mistake because if I had no power coming out of these relays, I should have known there was nothing going to the circuit board. But however, I did change. First, I changed the relay. Then I changed the circuit board. I still had no luck with that. Circuit board was $44 on Amazon. I just left the new one in. I kept the old one as a spare because obviously it wasn't messed up. So the next thing I checked was this right here. This is called a rollover cutoff switch. So what that's used for is that if you're running on LP, which is in the flames in this tube right here, if the flame starts rolling out of this tube, it's going to hit this rollover cutoff switch. Once that's blown, nothing's going to work. It cuts everything off. So if the flame comes up here, this gets to a certain temperature, this is going to cut off. So I tested this. In order to test this, you pull, it's just two quick connects. You pull the quick connect off back there, you pull this one off, and you stick an ohm meter across it. So to test to see if that was the issue, it ohmed fine when I pulled it off, but as you can see, my casing is a little, sorry about my video here, there we go. This casing is a little messed up, so I said, okay, well, I'm just going to bypass that for just to test. Do not run your water heater without having one of these installed. It'll cause a fire and your camper will go up in flames. But just to see if that was the issue, I pulled this connection off and stuck it right there and just bypassed this. Like I said, guys, do not run your water heater like that, especially if you're running it on LP. Super dangerous. But I highly advise do not do that. So that didn't work. So my next step, this was fine, so I plugged it all back in. So my next step was, well, what the heck's going on? If you could tell, I put two new connections right here. So I turned the breaker off inside, cut those two connections off, and then I just temporarily twisted these wires together just to see if I could get power at this element. So I did have 120 here because obviously I twisted the wires together, but it wasn't doing anything. So after tinkering around for a while, I figured out. So this wire right here is your 12 volt. This is just your 12 volt wire. So I pulled this out. I had no idea this was a 12 volt wire. It says 600 volts on the jacketing, so I just assumed it was like a remote wire just to go up to the circuit board, which is right here. But this didn't have anything on it. This should have had 12 volts on it. So I tested this to ground and it had 0. So then I had an aha moment and said, oh, I bet you my 12 volt stuff's messed up. So I went inside right by the control switch, which is right here. This is the back of the control switch. And I had no voltage there. This is a different, this is probably a different color than you guys are seeing on your water heater. Mine, if you could tell over here, I have it spliced together. My hunting property is way out in the middle of nowhere, so I used what I used. But I had 12 volt going to this switch or anything. So I did discover that my 12 volt wire was broken. So once I reconnected the 12 volt wire, everything seemed to work. So those are the steps, guys. Like I said, make sure you have the easy checks is make sure you have your 110, and the easy check is 110, and then make sure that this isn't blown. But if you go through all those steps, I spent a total of like $7 on this relay, $44 on the circuit board, and then discovered all it was a broken 12 volt wire because I'm an idiot, I guess. But if you guys have any questions, I do a lot of this work myself, so if I have an answer for you, I will help you out. Hope this video helped you guys out. Good luck with what you got going on.